my parents had two sons, and their sons are both going. They both volunteered, they're both there. And Joyce was, at the time, she was living with my parents because she had a job at Emporium in San Jose. And they're all sitting at the dinner table one night, and you could see the person standing at the front door. And here comes this Western Union man. And I guess everybody froze. Well, odds was it wasn't me. And as it turned out, it was my brother. He'd been shot on the flight line, sniped, and they hauled him off to a hospital at Bintui.
So let's talk about the civilian life now, the civ stuff that you said. How was it? What was the first thing you thought of doing or trying out after coming back, and how did that turn out for you?
First thing, well, the thing that I did, I applied to grad school because I had a degree in business administration from Cal Berkeley, marketing, and I didn't have any interest in that. I was always kind of a hands-on technical guy, and so I got accepted to San Jose State in their structural engineering, civil engineering program, and it took me 3 years to take the courses that I had not taken or had failed miserably at the first time through Berkeley. And I got my Master of Science degree in structural engineering, which was part of the civil engineering program at San Jose State. And it was a good education. It was a hands-on. All the professors were practitioners. They all had PhDs, but they were hands-on guys, not talkers. They were also doers. And I had very good experience. I was a teaching assistant for the surveying professor in all of his courses, route surveying, plane surveying, whatever. And I also was a teaching assistant for a professor that taught the structural mechanics series at the grad level. And so that was good experience.
So are you at this point putting the life behind you, the one that was a little painful and a little more?
Oh, no.
Or is it running parallel with
the past? Yeah, it's just parallel, and you keep putting a foot in front of the other foot, and you keep going in life until the end. At least that's how I handle life.
But it wasn't something that was interrupting.
No.
Okay.
No. Some guys in combat in Vietnam, for very good reasons, have PTSD, and they suffered a lot of emotional things, and that's real. And I know it's real because my brother had it very bad. But he got over it, and he's very successful at what he does now. So yeah, it's the past. It helps to find who you are now, but it's past, and you keep going ahead. So I just went to grad school, and I got my master's degree, and I started doing structural engineering.
And what does your brother do?
He's a criminal defense attorney in San Mateo County. Perhaps some of the viewers might know of him. He was the defense attorney for Tiffany Lee. His name's Jeff Carr, Geoff.
And he had one of the highest bails set in U.S. history or something?
Yeah.
For a murder trial? Yes.
Yep.
So anybody who wants to Google, they can Google Tiffany Lee. Let's talk about your daughter, Krista, who is around this time. So there has been some gap here, and then Krista is born, but there have been some challenges. So can you take us to those days?
Challenges? Well, hell, I thought life was a challenge.
It always is, but then some of us are blessed with a little bit more. So how was that period?
In terms of what,
Well,
Krista?
no, not with Krista, with Krista, and then there was some miscarriages.
Yeah, yes, yes. It's painful. Uh, yeah. Um, Joyce had 6 miscarriages. And again, it's probably probably all my fault. Uh, and early when the boy was in the trimester.
And we can skip this if it's
And he had a
uncomfortable.
name. Yeah. So
Let's talk about your move to San Ramon. Why San Ramon?
oh my God,
And
that one you can blame on Joyce. That one
take
is
us
not
back?
my fault. Okay. Joyce and I lived in Fremont at the time Krista was born in '78, and we decided we need to. Well, we stayed there for about 8 years, but the house was small. We needed to get someplace else, and so we drove up 680 and we drove into Pleasanton, and we looked around Pleasanton. There were a couple houses we were getting close to buy there, but then Joyce said, "Oh, okay, let's go up to San Ramon." And I thought, San what? Okay, all right. So we drive up there and we get off the freeway at Crow Canyon. And we turn left and we go down San Ramon Boulevard and we take the first street to the right. Well, that's Norris Canyon. As we're driving up Norris Canyon at the corner of Share Bear and Norris Canyon is a for sale sign on the house. And Joyce just oogled and she fell in love with the house. And so it was for sale by owner. And we go inside and the people showed us around, had a pool. Very nice house. And so we bought it.
So that's how your move to San Ramon happened.
All Joyce's fault.
All
yes.
Joyce's decision. Describe for us how San Ramon looked to you at that time. This is decades back. So what was missing at that time? Maybe that's the easiest way to describe.
Oh, okay. Are you sure you want to ask me that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what was missing was overdevelopment. It was
I meant the streets that were missing.
Oh, it was pretty much like it is, except of course the Doherty Valley wasn't there. So it was pretty much the same, you know. Some of the infill, okay, West Side wasn't there, but all the stuff you see, the hill, you know, okay, all the hill development wasn't there then, except for Morgan Drive, that was there. So yeah, it was nice. It was kind of low key, little suburban place, and yeah, it turned out to be an okay.
Let's take something from what you just said, overdevelopment. Some of the areas around that time were starting to get developed, including some of the hills. And there was some things starting to shift in San Ramon and San Ramon Valley. How did you get involved? How is the next phase of your journey starting to look at this?
Oh boy, yeah. Well, how it started was Joyce was she was into the newspapers, and then she saw an article in the paper about a city meeting about the capital budget, CIP, Capital Improvement Program budget. And on it, it had an item, Norris Canyon Street widening. And she showed it to me, and I said, oh, really? Okay. So I went down to the meeting, and I saw this, and I became unhinged. I probably haven't stopped being unhinged for 34 years, but I saw this, what they were going to do. The plan was to widen Norris Canyon Road from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And guess which side of the road was going to add the additional 2 lanes? That was where I lived. So I said, oh, I don't like this. I haven't been here long enough. So I get a little upset. And I got the people along North Canyon from San Ramon Valley up to Bollinger. I informed them, and we came down a couple times, I guess, to council meetings, and there was standing room only at that time outside of the old council chambers. And
which was located where?
Perhaps remember this.
Where was the old council chamber, for those who don't know it?
Across from the PG&E Learning Center. Okay. Anyway, and so we spoke our piece as we do. Thank God we have that capability to do that here in our country. And we were able to convince the council then to take that item off of the capital improvement program. So that's how I got started. So anyway, that got taken care of. And then Joyce again's looking at the paper, right? And she sees that there is some group concerned about hillside development. They want to protect hills and creeks, and they were going to have a meeting over at a church over in a northwest part of town. So I go there, and I come in from my job at the university, and I got on my 3-piece suit and my tie and my short hair, and, looking quite corporate. And I go in, and a guy named Jim Blickenstaff was there, and his sidekick Paul Speroni, and they're talking about getting together something to do an initiative to protect the hills and the creeks. Well, okay, and I wasn't very turned on about it, and so I just left. Because they kind of thought I was some plant from some corporation, or perhaps, God forbid, some developer, right?
Because of the suit you were wearing, or
yeah, oh hell yeah, short hair and the suit and all that dumb stuff. Anyway, so a guy there came up to Jim, a guy who had participated in the North Canyon widening effort, and he knew me. And he said, Jim, this guy's not a plant, blah, blah, blah. So I get a call from Jim and Paul, and they asked me to join. So at first I'm going, I don't want to get involved in this stuff, because the first time I'd ever gotten involved in anything in quasi-political was that capital improvement item to have Norris Canyon Road widened. And I said, I don't have time. I got this job. It's 12 hours a day, 6+ days a week. And anyway, so I talked to him, and Jim and Paul sweet talked me in. They got to me somehow. I don't know how.
Was the tie gone by that time? By the time you spoke?
Oh, hell no. The tie's never been gone.
Okay, I thought maybe it became a less corporate look, more
No.
Okay.
No. I've always had on.
Okay.
So
I'm assuming Joyce is still reading the newspapers.
Yeah. I gotta stop her reading a newspaper, right? So I joined the group that they named Save Our Hills, and a lot of people didn't like it, and a lot of people did, because its goal was to prevent what you see in Southern California, where you take bulldozers and trim the hills off, and you have what's called bathtub development up. And it was not to stop development, although in my heart of hearts, that would have been my preference, but that's not realistic. So we joined Save Our Hills, and they got some more followers. And then, because I'm kind of an outspoken guy, they asked me to be their spokesperson and their chairman, just to kind of, the pet bulldog that you pull out when you need one.
Now,
That was me.
you once described all this unfolding as the old Wild West, and that stuck with me. Now, is this getting to the point of old Wild West, or are we in the middle of it?
Well, no, that was some of it. A lot of people didn't like the idea of having some kind of control on a development. Obviously, developers didn't. Obviously, people hired by them probably didn't, because they can see their jobs going away or something like that. So in your campaigns, there was a lot of people just didn't care for the concept. And then, because I was so outspoken, a lot of people didn't care for me, but that didn't bother me. I care less if people don't like me. Because to me, it's the principle of things, and plus it's the vision of town. So anyway, we started on Save Our Hills to do an initiative ordinance drive. That's a big deal. This was the first time it ever been done in San Ramon. And you had to go gather a certain number of signatures in excess of a certain percentage of the number of registered voters. What we did, we started out standing in front of supermarkets. Well, okay, one time, I think it was over at the old Lucky's, which is now Sprouts. I'm standing there in Jim's, and I'm talking to this woman and her kids, and I'm so the group Save Our Hills started an initiative ordinance drive for hillside and creek protection. And to do that, you have to gather signatures of registered voters. And it's a special form, very legal per state guidelines. So Jim and I were standing over at Lucky Supermarket one time, and I'm talking to this gal and her kids, and here come a couple of health club goons, no necks, probably no brains, and they come up and you know what one of them did? He got in between me and this woman. Now, imagine how that makes you feel. I take that personally, and I couldn't care less how muscled he was. I wasn't going to let that happen.
So that,
I don't like that.
That
okay?
would be a completely non-joyous kind of a fuel that you needed.
Oh yeah. It holding that kind of anger towards those kinds of people long term is not good. That's probably why I'm so screwed up as I am, right? But
well,
no,
the times were different back then, and the issues were different. Now, for people who don't know, which are the hills you're talking about? Which hills were you trying to save?
The hills inside of the city of San Ramon boundaries. Okay, predominantly west side hills, and some over on the east side of the San Ramon Valley. So anyway, we gathered enough signatures, a lot of them. We gathered a lot of signatures, and we presented it to the city clerk, and it got city council had two options: to either put it on the ballot or to go ahead and pass it. And I think they had to have like 4/5 vote. Anyway, so the city council at that time chose to pass it, and it was passed 4-5.
Now, your move into city council, how was that experience? How did that come to be, and why?
Okay, and how that came to be was because as being part of Save Our Hills with Jim and the group, we got into certain things within town, development based primarily. And I started to see, well, hell, all I am is just shooting off my horn on the outside, throwing rocks at the castle. And I convinced Jim, okay, all right, the two of us, let's stop throwing rocks and just get inside the castle and participate from the inside. And so that's what he and I did in 1991.
And you stayed on till 95.
Well, yeah, at the time in fall of 91, 4 of the 5 seats were up. Okay, 1 seat, the guy had to say goodbye for certain reasons, which I won't go into. So his 2-year seat was up, and then 3 of the seats were up. So there were 4 seats up. And so Jim ran for the 2-year seat, and I don't know how many people he ran against, whatever it was, but he came in first. And then for the 3 seats, there were 8 people, and the only person who got more votes than the old bad guy Greg Carr was Mary Lou Oliver. And I know she's probably watching this, but I was not surprised because she has been a long-term fixture starting from day one in this city's government. But I thought I did okay for never having done any of this before. And so, yes, I got into a 4-year seat that way.
How did it feel being inside the castle and looking out? Did it feel different?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you've got access to information. And plus, you got to vote. And plus, you have a platform to speak from. You are just one of 5 equals at that time. And you're no worse nor better than any of the other 4, and you have your own constituency, and you are supposedly being their representative on the dais. And so, yeah, and it was informative because I learned a lot of things I'd never known, a lot of things. I had a chance to learn from others who'd gone down that path before me. So
at this point, are you working full time? Are you taking care of other things? Now you were an international consultant, and
I still do that. I had been in Mexico for years, and then I had to move to Texas because we had a little problem in Mexico, very big problem, and I had to leave because I was a target, and I didn't want to be a target anymore in my life. And so I moved to Texas, and I set up a company in Texas. And I was in Texas part-time for about 8 years. I'd fly to Mexico after about the first 2 years of being in Texas. And like I said, I was there for 8 years in Texas. And then I basically hop a plane to San Ramon, Francisco.
So were you doing this when you were on the council as well? And how?
Oh, no.
Okay, so
that was long afterwards. I got off the council in 95. I started doing consulting in 94. My prior job, or perhaps I should say my last feedback job as an employee, was for the University of California, the Office of the President. And I had a job there. That job, I was the director of a crazy title, okay? I was director of facilities design, construction, operation and maintenance, and environmental compliance. Try putting that
that's
on a card, you know?
Yes, that's a lot of
Only the university would have that kind of a title. Anyway, I had that job, and then in 94, I left, and I started doing international consulting, and I did construction projects in places like Indonesia, Chile, Turkey, all over.
Which is your favorite place that so far?
Well, in terms of, I've had the good fortune to be, well, to like travel, live, and or, work in 43 countries or city-states, territories.
So it would be
And
very hard to pick.
yeah, so I have a lot of airplane miles on my backside. Of all the places I've been to, the place that I took to instantaneously was New Zealand. A very nice country.
And is it the openness that drew you to that country or something else?
Well, I was traveling back and forth to Jakarta at the time on a big geothermal power plant project. And I decided if I'm going to travel halfway around the globe to go to that place, going and coming, I'm going to take some personal time. So I'd stop in Hong Kong. I stopped in Australia coming back. And then, of course, my final trip, I stopped in Auckland, New Zealand. And the thing that hit me about it was, for any of us that grew up in California, at the time I was there, which was the 90s, it was kind of like a time warp. It was outside of town. It was all, 2-lane roads. And it was kind of like going back in California to the 50s or 60s. And so that was kind of enjoyable for me because I was born here, right, in California. So
you have been traveling so much. Are you United We Fly the Friendly Skies Mileage Plus customer?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Let's talk about Joyce. And she has been a presence and has created her own identity, but there was a turn in the family dynamics with the illness. And if you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, Joyce was diagnosed with cancer. It's a lymphoma, but the good news about it is it's not very aggressive, but it's still there hanging over her head every day, and that's tough. So she found out about that, and then I shut down the operation in Texas, and I came back here. And perhaps that's not good news for people that see me speaking at city council meetings, but yeah. So, and that's about a year and a half ago. But
how difficult was the decision that you had to make to close the operations in Texas and then move here? Was that an easy transition?
That was one of the easiest decisions I ever made in my life. That was a nanosecond. I just shut it down.
And what happened after that? After she was diagnosed, where was the family at this point?
Well, then last August, my grandson Enzo was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma. And that's a very aggressive tumor-like cancer. And he was 4 years old. And the doctors, the several pediatricians that my daughter and son-in-law had taken him to, thought it was just a sinus infection. And they kept giving him antibiotic pills and whatever, and didn't go away. So my daughter and my son-in-law finally figured out this isn't right. And my daughter Krista's kind of like me. She doesn't let any grass grow under her feet when something has to be done. So they hauled him in the Children's Hospital, and he was diagnosed, and it was so large. It was kind of like a football shape, about 3 inches plus long, 2+ inches in diameter, growing underneath his brain cavity above his palate in between his ears. And so what the damn thing was doing was it was extruding out his ears. By the time they got him to the hospital, the doctors told them that if they had brought him in a couple days later, they couldn't save him. So try that on for size. Okay. So he started chemotherapy, and it was heavy for about 3 months, and they stopped it. And so far, so good. He's going in Friday, the 15th of May, for a full body scan in about 6 months since he was found to be free of that cancer. He's a very lucky little boy.
And who does he take after, grandpa or grandma?
I guess I have to be politically correct. So
Well, let me ask you this. Does he read the newspaper?
No, but he talks a lot. So he takes after, actually, he takes after his grandma more that way than me. But he's much like me. He just doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. So he's going to have that for his life, because life is like that.
And he has recovered, and he is thriving, and we're seeing him grow and blossom every day. So we know he's on the healing path, as we know it right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your passion, some of your other things that you do. You have many. So let's talk about photography. I did not know that till you mentioned it. So how did that happen? When did that start?
It started when I was about 10 years old. My grandfather, who was an experienced Finnish carpenter at the end of the 1800s and the 1900s, he got into photography very late in his life, and so he'd come up to see us, and he'd bring cameras and he'd show me. Then he died suddenly when I was 11, and just before he died, he sent me his camera in the mail, and I got that, and he died, and I got hooked on it, film photography, and I've been doing it ever since. So how long is that? 60 plus years.
Do you recall the first picture you took?
Oh yeah, it was, perhaps it was on my father's fold out Kodak cheap camera he'd had during the war that shot 6:16 film, and God, it was expensive, but the big negative stuff. So that was the first one I took, and you know what? I still have that camera.
Wow. I have to ask you then, do you also own a quill pen? Because that would be a nice possession.
Like me to show you one?
I would love to. It's killing me not seeing it.
Well, it's interesting that you should ask, because, this is cumbersome. No, it's stuck in the drawer, but a quill pen had two little curved things, and you controlled it by a screw, and you put ink into here, and the ink would flow down, and you turn it onto the paper, and you drag it across, and the ink would flow out.
So you have it. So the thing is that you do possess these.
But I haven't used it for almost 60 years, So I still have it.
Okay, so let's talk about the other love that you have is for the outdoors, which led you, and now you have a ranch cabin in the hills, Sierra Hills.
Yeah.
Is that a follow-up to your love for the outdoors that you felt that was an easy transition for you?
Yeah, it was a combination of that, plus the experience farming as a kid. So it's small. I call it a ranch. As a matter of fact, I have a cattle brand, registered cattle brand, and I have a registered name for it. It's called Big Humbug Ranch, and it's up in Groveland, and it's on the south rim of the Tuolumne Canyon. And the Tuolumne Canyon there, it goes down about 2,000 feet from the edge of my property all the way down. It's pretty spectacular place. It's pretty. So yeah, I got that back in '86 because I always wanted to have property up in the Sierra foothills because of all the gold mining. You know, my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side were in mining, and I spent a lot of time in mines, you know, prospecting and doing, you know, claim, you know, maintenance and stuff like that out in Ely, Nevada area. So yeah, I you know, got the property because I just wanted to have it, and so yeah, I have 80
So
acres.
that's what drew you to those to that area, memories from the past. That
Yeah,
you
plus the history, you know, of it,
so
and well, and plus, it's an interesting part of the foothills. It's at about 2,500 foot elevation, so it's above the height of the valley, but it's under the snow line. It snows sometimes, but it's in that, you know, let's call it a temperate zone. So it's actually, you know, pretty nice. Like in January, there are sometimes you can go out there at the ranch in your shirt sleeves, and here's the sun. You know?
weather. How are you seeing the next phase of your life as we are
Hopefully long.
as we get out of this shelter in place? There will be many things, I'm sure, many things discussed that you want to do and you want to be a part of. But how do you see it long term, 10, 15, 20 years from now? What are some things you would like to see?
Well, 20 years from now, I don't hold out for that number, but 10 years from now, well, I'm not certain I get your question about how I see things for myself or how I see myself with San Ramon or
Both.
both. Well, how I see myself with San Ramon is an aging dinosaur that is trying to help younger folks get into the system of the city governments. And as you know, I have been doing that for some time, and I take it seriously. Sometimes I miscalculate who I back, but sometimes I do hitch my, you know, star onto the correct person. Okay, so I hope to, you know, kind of pay it forward. You know, help people who are just getting started to just, if nothing else, give them the experiences that I've had and my understanding about how things operate or don't. And it's kind of like a history lesson, because I take seriously participation in where you live, participation in your country, as in service somehow to your country, participation in your city. And if every person, I'm kind of on this lecture right now, so please, you know, hang with me. If every person in San Ramon showed up for just one city council meeting every year, there would not be enough space to have them all find a seat. And it would probably scare the hell out of the city council. But that is what it takes. Just one time a year, go down and see how your city council members, your mayor, how they're doing. Observe how they act interpersonally. Observe how they speak or don't speak on the issues. And then form your own views of them as people, understand the issues, and then stand up and speak at public comments or on an issue and participate. Because if you don't participate and have your views known and have you get educated also about those things. You only have yourself to blame if things end up going not the way you would care to have them go. So I'm really obviously adamant about that people have to participate. And it doesn't take a lot. The only hard part about it is standing up and speaking. And I know that firsthand. It doesn't come easy. But if you get past that first time, it's like you've got the keys to the kingdom of yourself and your city governance.
And what about overall for yourself and your family? What do you see? What is something that you would like to see with the family?
I would like to see my grandson have a very long life. That's what I want. Okay? And yeah, it's emotional because it is. I want all kids to have a chance at a long life. And matter of fact, my daughter Costa and her husband, Dr. Keller, have started a foundation for childhood cancer. I'll tell you about that. So I would like to see no kid ever get cancer. Ever. Okay?
Thank you, Greg. I know it is very emotional to share things like that, but we appreciate you sharing that and educating us on the pain that family members have to go through when anyone in the family, regardless of age, has an illness that's serious or not so serious. It does not matter. Everybody
doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So we really wish the whole family luck with your journey, whether it's in the Sierra Hills, whether it's in San Ramon. We wish you the very best, and thank you for your service to the country. Thank you to your family for having this mindset of letting both sons volunteer their life, their time for the country. And thank you for your service to the community, for the entire family, providing that time. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And just as a close, because I can't shut up either, I don't think of myself as any different from any other person. The only difference with me is I stood up and I spoke and I participated. Everybody can do what I did. I'm no genius. It doesn't take rocket science. It just takes each of us to get out of our comfort zone and contribute to the community. So, okay, Aparna, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. And, okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.